finish.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today we're going to continue the series on some of my favorite B-tier beat-em-up games of all time, the type of stuff that's not going to show up on any top 25 lists, and if you can't tell already, we're playing Lightbringer from Taito today. Now this is an isometric hack-and-slash beat-em-up, and it's a much longer arcade game than you're used to. Your average playthrough is going to take over an hour, and this has some light RPG elements. Kind of feels like a mix between something like the Dungeons & Dragons Capcom beat-em-up games and Gaiapolis from Konami. But I absolutely love this title. It is so fun, so unique, and so infinitely playable. I can't recommend it enough. Before you get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But I love basically everything Lightbringer does. It's an awesome beat 'em up with a lot of branching paths, a lot of unique artwork, and a familiar fantasy setting that you've definitely played before, and for the most part everyone seems to enjoy when they see it again. And I really do like the isometric viewpoint and the fact that in the maps there's multiple branching paths you can go on each level to reach the boss. From the start of this game to the finish, you're going to be seeing and doing something new every single level, and there's a lot of different puzzles and hidden mechanics in this game that you're going to have to master if you actually want to see the ending. So this kind of feels like a beat 'em up except enhanced, where the only goal is not just to beat what's in front of you, but it is to figure out how to get through the game and what power-ups to use the best way possible. And it will definitely trick you too. There's some areas in the game that inadvertently make you damage yourself. But I just love this type of game, giving you a little bit more in a genre you're familiar with. The mechanics of the beat 'em up are totally sound. All of the knife slashes, and for the characters that just use their fists, all of the punches and kicks have a nice meaty connection in the sound effects, and every time you hit an enemy, it really does feel like it connects. And because this is isometric, you might think that it might be hard to line up with what you're trying to hit, but once we actually aggro these enemies here, you're going to see that the game is very generous with the direction you're facing versus what you're doing, which is a very good design decision. In a beat 'em up, if you feel like you should be hitting your opponent and you're not because you're not perfectly lined up, it will drive you nuts, and Lightbringer absolutely has none of those problems whatsoever. And with these maze-like levels kind of guiding you through a different experience every time you play, it just 100% works as far as the game is concerned, and it is one of my favorite beat 'em ups of all time for sure. But you'll see here there are different characters. You basically have your swordsman, but the magician can be very useful, especially in boss fights, because you're going to see here his special attack just took 2/3 of the giant snake's health bar off in one go. You want to save those specials if you're inundated with enemies or if you're in a boss battle, because they are going to make the difference between having to fight, pick and poke for 2+ minutes or being able to destroy a boss within 10 seconds depending on how you prioritize your item resources. Which makes total sense in a game that has RPG mechanics, because obviously in a role-playing game you're definitely going to want to item manage everything to give yourself a better advantage as you get into harder areas of the game. So even though this is a beat 'em up in gameplay style, those light RPG elements definitely lean towards that resource management. And you want to basically destroy everything in a level as well, because you can't figure out how to get out of this area and progress. You think you need to be on this gate. Now I know how to do this, but I'm showing you the thought process when you first play it. Be aware that you want to basically break everything in a level, because how you move forward is actually to destroy those two pillars there. There's multiple exits, and destroying the pillars on each side unlock the gate. And that's the thing, some paths are going to be completely optional, but going down those optional paths are going to give you more power-ups, special weapons, and more experience that are going to make the later game easier. That's the fun in Lightbringer. It is non-linear. Sure, you have to get to the boss at the end of the level, but the path you take there is completely up to you. You can try to speedrun this and go for the fastest path, or you can really take your time, explore every single area of the map, get as many power-ups and special secret items as you possibly can, and kind of play it that way as well. And it's not often that a beat-em-up gives you more than one way to play the game. Sure, you'll get a different character with light or heavy attacks, fast or slow attacks, but honestly, getting all of this ability to kind of just traverse the level and world as you want is something unique in the genre outside of Gaiapolis. And you'll see here we moved on to a total brawler character, but it's Taito, so you know the soundtrack is going to be absolutely amazing as well. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll be back with more about the game. Now, if you could describe a perfect soundtrack for a genre of game, this would 100% be it. It's not Taito's most inspired music ever, but it is perfect for this swords and sandal, Conan the Barbarian-esque genre and setting that we are in. And the music gets even more fun later in the game, and I'll definitely give you a second listen in just a moment. But honestly, this game, every single component of it sells itself to make a sum that is better than all of its parts indistinguishable. All of the enemy sprites are not the most impressive graphics you've ever seen, but they are detailed and they're interesting. I will give them credit for this mimic chest here. All of those tentacles coming out just look absolutely spectacular. The graphics, while effective, definitely aren't the most impressive thing you're going to see for an arcade board of this era. But when you put everything together, decent graphics, awesome soundtrack, the isometric view, the light RPG elements, the length of the game, and the awesome combat mechanics, you end up with a title that basically fires on all cylinders. And it just goes to show that while this might not be the prettiest game for its year of release, I would say it's definitely one of the most fun beat-em-ups from that year back in the 90s. And that's why I love this game so much. It is just basically like a beat 'em up plus. It has all the mechanics of a beat 'em up. Punch and kick your opponents until their life bar goes down to 0 and move on. But it has all of those action platforming adventure elements as well as puzzles in the levels. I love all the puzzles, all the different branching paths, and some of the puzzles are going to get very difficult to solve, but when you solve the harder puzzles, you're going to be rewarded with so many different experience points, and you want those, because if you can't tell already, at the top left hand corner of the screen, I'm at level 3. The higher the level, the harder you attack. The harder you attack, the easier things are. Although every once in a while, something like King Viper here can be slightly annoying. The game does have shields that you can find, but I don't have one right here, so I am just kind of spam attacking those special moves. You get 3 per life, and sometimes you do need to do that. You'll get in a spot where you just don't have the right power up for the right boss. But therein lies some of the fun as well, trying to manage those power-ups and understand where you need to be and what you need to bring. And I love this particular area as well because it brings in ice physics. And you'll see we get all the way to a branching path to its terminus, and we can't go any further. But this entire path was just to get this one gauntlet on the ground. That's an ice gauntlet. It's going to give us ice attacks, which the monsters in this temple and further into the game are going to be weak to. So it gives you this entire ability to completely go away from the game you were playing and trying to get to the boss just to get one power up that's going to make your life a little bit easier moving forward. And that's why I love Lightbringer. It is just more than a beat 'em up, even though it uses all the tropes of the beat 'em up genre. And you're going to see sometimes you attack enemies, you're going to see a weak or a strong symbol above their head as well. The game will telegraph what you should be using for an attack and what you shouldn't be using for an attack, and that ends up working out really well because this game has so many different unique collectibles that you can use for your attacks, and a lot of them on your first playthrough you're never going to see unless you go absolutely every square inch of the map. And I love the boss design as well. This gigantic queen spider here. I hate spiders. I hate seeing them in games, but for some reason this one doesn't seem to be the creepiest I've ever seen, so I can deal with it. And I love this entire graveyard filled with skeletons as well. There's fog going over the top. It's such a vibe, and it just really does draw a mental image of the world of Lightbringer. And you'll see as we get further into the game, the puzzles are going to get deeper. You have these 3 different levers here. 2 of them are going to open doors, and one of them is going to drop a rock on your head, so always be careful. Or this room in particular, you cannot get out of this room until you solve the puzzle. There's going to be no enemies whatsoever. You just need to figure out what to do, and the game will basically teach you as you go along. Earlier in the video you saw I destroyed a statue and it damaged me. That type of statue is more likely to actually hurt you, where certain types of statues, as Headless Goddess here, are more likely to have nothing inside of them or a power up. So it actually tells you what is safer. You go ahead and destroy these 2 statues right here, and you're going to see suddenly the game allows you to continue. And that is a really fun piece of gameplay mechanic, trying to teach you what to do so you can solve puzzles later. But I promise you one more sample of the soundtrack, as I said it got even better. So just give it 30 seconds this time and I'll be right back and tell you a little bit more about Lightbringer. But enjoy! I love that soundtrack, and I love all the sound effects as well. It just really helps bring the world alive. And in this area here, this castle, you need to unlock these 2 gems to progress further on into the game. And that's why Lightbringer is so special. It is a beat 'em up that just has so much more going on over the top. This did get a console release later on in its lifespan on the PlayStation 2, because this definitely feels way more like a console length game. But it's interesting that these type of games that are a beat 'em up with RPG elements, just like Gaiapolis from Konami, it's like the designers were trying to make a console game, but they knew consoles were not powerful enough to handle something like this, so they just made an arcade game that lasted almost an eternity in arcade game length terms. If you're putting quarters into this machine, you better hope you're rich and your pockets are laden with cash, or else you're never going to see the ending of it. There really isn't any continue as well, so you got to bring a lot of money. But short of that, however you play Lightbringer, definitely make sure you check it out. Bye-bye.